It's basically a little note to my birth mother, who I've never met. I wish you had known when you launched me how I loved my home pond, its aerated, bleachy smell, the beach leaves around it, the skating, picnics, scout ceremonies, my kids visiting now, how I would feel at home in the sky, climbing high hills, seeing bluegrass like tails of galloping horses slowed down, like cirrus clouds sped up. I wish you could know I buckled up every single time, fell for a Moreau painting called The Diamond Smiles at Twilight, never walked into a bar alone. Could you guess I marry the kind of man who shared, who gave great advice on what car to buy? Did you have any idea I'd have a kid who'd say, do you think I shouldn't like you as much as I do being a teenager and all? I hope you could hope that yes, I was meticulously raised, that a friend would call me serene, that I got so old my scars faded, and I learned of 100,000 undersea mountains, only 1,000 of them named. Did the smallest thought of yours guess how very much I would love it here? Wow. The next one is the next one in the book, because I like reading this one. It's a little embarrassing. I was the poet laureate at a friend's wedding. And this is called Why I Cried Reading This at Liz and James' Wedding. And it has two epigraphs, not just because I was pregnant. And the second epigraph is, but because the last line was hers, which is true. She had to come up and comfort me because I couldn't get through it. I was blubbering, it was terrible. Some people fall in love just around the edges. For others, love is fireworks in fog, true grandeur unrecognized, password never guessed, beautiful torture missed. For Melissa, for James, it's immersion, discovery, engagement. The sign outside the psychics read, today only, readings $10. We didn't believe her. The sign was not painted for use on just one day. But today only is a lucky charm. Time, peaceful as tap water, begins now, poured into one glass, saying you, today only, and another day, and more. You'll be kind to one another, and he'll bring laughter home. You'll build the peace of the household, and she'll amaze you with wit. He is anchor and oxygen. She is voluptuous and volatile, diving under together bravely to see a freshly washed window view of the world. Today only is that jubilant moment when you finally hit the jelly in the center of the donut and stand together shining in that wide, united way a diamond throws light. A card sign of readiness. Carry on gently, and you will find a carriage ride, a sweet old Ford pickup, a hammock, a sea. She's an English teacher, and she is a wonderful person to share poetry with because she'll tell me what's working and what doesn't. And she also introduced me to my own personal husband, so this goes out to Melissa. This book has some of the journalism poems in it. I like writing about journalism and think that about the stuff that I've learned through journalism, and it's a wonderful profession where you have to go out and do things you wouldn't usually do things that normal people wouldn't do. And for me, in 2001, that meant going out to Breezy Point, which is the part of Queens where they lost the largest concentration of folks, and 9/11. So I'm going to read this one and depress you, but then I'll do something that won't depress you. I promise.
I like that.
This is called In Memoriam, The Happiness of Breezy Point, September 2001. The neighborhood's as tame as a hayride, full of the very, but not very recently Irish, cops and firemen and sons and brothers of cops and firemen, wives, volunteers, plus a lot of recent college grads who, thanks to Mr. B on Seabreeze, Artie Bennis of Human Resources, worked on the 97th floor for the big bond traders. He was voting that day. The houses fly green and orange and white flags, and door signs offer 1,000 welcomes and say, God bless this house and God bless America, even before. Across Jamaica Bay from here in the Rockaways, I could see the city, the blood smear over the southern tip, neon sunsets, all that is left of Mulligan, Burke, Dowdell. The list of our missing, cruel, young and long. A thin, blonde woman gently rubbed the face of the picture of a young man in a tux, pink rose on his lapel. She and her friend or sister-in-law, arms around each other, pounded the photo with a staple gun, so roughly. The older couple behind them are related. The woman whispered to the man, I know he's safe. Watching how often they touched made me miss Pete more, because we are usually together and touching, and he is of draft age. And here I thought I was so smart marrying a younger man. Surrounding them in their grief, around me in my worried, lucky loneliness, the pipers played, 24 of them, a horde, a sinister middle section of amazing grace, dissonant, swarming, and I stood by the young widow and hoped they would not play Danny Boy. I heard it later, home alone, put my face in my hands and cried, and multiplied my tangential sadness by 1,000, because it was only empathy, no huge loss of a loved one, and multiplied that by 3,000, one for each, and then by 20, because each person has that many who will be crushed by their loss. Loving brother, father, son, brother-in-law, son-in-law, uncle, friend, firefighter. That's 60 million more sadnesses than I feel now, times how many years. The falling of the buildings created a vacuum pulling sky to ground, but there's the gentleness of watering plants here. Crickets slowing down like music boxes in the perfect September days. The monarchs, little shards of stained glass with order on their wings. The bikes are all unlocked. The hot dog people give away food. Neighbors bring tragedy hams. Lines go around the corner to give blood, and gifts of boots bigger than size 10.5. And mass is packed. They ran out of wafers the first night, and the little boy who confuses Father, Son, and Holy Ghost with head, shoulders, knees, and toes wants to know where's Daddy. What's it like to hate your future? I think of the young widow who married her childhood sweetheart that May and can't imagine anyone else, and looks at the next 10 years with despair. His clock was always 5 minutes faster. A few jets headed into Kennedy's slow, like screaming choirs of angels, with each the thought of a splitting crash. I think of the weightlifter walking around with the huge responsibility of his oiled body, the new neighbor with a list for her 40-year garden, the stars seen through the smoke and dust that is all that remains downtown, and here holding candles, the people trying to sing that saddest silence when others are singing, but the words won't come. Ooh. I hadn't read that out loud in a while. It's like, ooh.
Yeah, really.
This is another category. Press. Jersey's finest. Okay, how about this one? I love all women. I am calling out to him in this one. Cabin Carry Press also gives you an editor who helps you put your poems in the right order, which is the hardest thing to do because you only do it a couple times. If you have a couple books, you don't get practiced at it. But Brian Wormser worked on this one, and he kind of took the recent ones and allowed them in, which made me happy. And he also, tell me, this one is called Yacht. Read this love letter to life. Its pages turn in the ice flame off of the fast car's roof. Follow the traveling Caroline, the communism of the Gospels, the ice rink's joyful fourfold spotlight, how it shines the hair and adds grace. Eyes and words swerve into focus, nouns marry in metaphor, lines enter a stranger's memory and stay for 7 years. Smell the multiflora roses, honeysuckle, burning leaves. Feel the inside of the body, the smooth core. Watch the wren pull the dead fledgling from the hole, feather by dusty feather. Guess the stories. Tailless squirrels on the woodpile, condom under the old folks' home sofa. The lady's internal monologue as she guards the Lamborghini at the auto show, red guts spilled like berries from rabbit mouth. I'd write, even if each page's only destination were the stove for winter heat, again and again. So that was a love poem to writing. I'd forgotten what it was about when I started reading it. I would have given you. This one is, everything is kind of based on a true story, right? Like, I feel like I haven't had an original thought in years. I just steal stuff from what I see out in the world. This is kind of true. This is a dramatic monologue in the persona of my neighbor's cat. My friend's neighbor's cat. It's called the Asshole's Cat. I'm watching behind my ears, inside the only chain link fence in the cul-de-sac, eyes closing slowly as he plays his music just that loud. Even I know the songs sound old and angry. I heard the cop. I know why he shuts it off at 9:59 on weeknights, 11:59 on weekends. Yes, he will report you for trespassing if you knock on his door to ask him to turn it down. Yes, he's the one who trashed the tulips, snapped them, not cut them, left them to wilt. That's what you get. And yes, back in the more cordial days, he borrowed gas mowers and returned them empty. I don't mind the late action movies played to rattle the windows, or the way he sits out tanning flab just to force you to look at him. I get that. I caterwaul in my way too. I once sat on his belly while he tried to watch TV in bed. Once. The other cats don't stop by anymore, but I'm at peace. He feeds me, and when I ran off for a week, he cried. I'm gonna try love poem. Yours are incredibly tough act to follow, I'm just saying. But this one has a epigraph from Don Marquis, the guy who wrote Archie and Mehitable. He wrote this little cartoon back in like the 40s. My parents used to talk about it. It's called Still Life with Ice Sculpture and Candles. And the epigraph is dedicated to Babs, with Babs knows what and Babs knows why. I have chosen my Omega male, the last one, the one I won't need another one after. I've tried the alphas, So we do not eat the candy heart without reading it. The fortune cookie we shared announced, you have an enviable marriage. That's true. After Dad's death, Ma's move, head lice, your family spits, our hour-long commutes, daughter who says no, son who says maybe not, the fighting between them, I couldn't survive if you didn't supply slapstick solutions. You opened the fungal cream box, read aloud the possible adverse reactions. Shortness of breath, fever, joint pain, fainting, swelling in the face, hives, weight gain, severe headache, menstrual irregularities, fast pulse, nausea, intestinal ulcers, vertigo, difficulty falling asleep, abnormal hair growth, glaucoma, vomiting, death. It sounds, my love, like growing old. What we vowed to do together. Doable, no? We'll have to pardon the future now. It will challenge us. But we have survived the first yawn during a kiss. We've chosen the word perinate as our own to live over from one harvest season to another. In between crises and naps and new pets, turbulence is mostly unexpected, the stewardess said. So we grow roots and canopy, higher, deeper, aiming for always, a wave tossing foam in the ocean. I'm going to read from this one, Barter. There's a series of like poems, unusual things. And I happened upon the title poem, To Rise Wildly, which is in here. So back to Kevin Carey again. Trains running after storms. And that was a headline from a New York Times article. This is a dramatic monologue by a train that's running after storms. I had to commit flight. I had seen too many birds escaping, flying off to the sides as if I were evil. In the east, the rumbling call to me, kept ahead of me, vanished. I rose and laughed. Be confident, the other trains told me. Rise wildly. I saw a star that appeared for only a second, then another star, then another, short, fast stars. It is all far more complex than we'd imagined. The sky, the flatlands, the fields. There is more so of everything, like daybreak in a house you know first at night. In one car, everyone had the same name, all the Yolanda Schmidts on the planet at once. I saw falling stars all day behind the sunlight. Yolanda, age 9, wanted to know what never mind really means. The fields around Spokane look like lily pads, green circles around the irrigation systems. The last train followed the last engine, like the flung back droop of Columbine sepals, triumphant. We were magnificent. We're in the castle of the angels, the 5-year-old Yolanda hollered. You know the look of the small plane flying beneath the big plane, that sliding lack of control? Perhaps this is a forever nightstand, the 37-year-old Yolanda thought, pondering what had happened very early this morning. Have you ever seen a bee land on a bud and both fall fast to the ground? When we land, there's a tunnel in the moon. Phrase in here, which I'll tell you what it means now, when it's sort of come up to it. You'll know, "Как встретишь такого и проведешь," which means how you meet the year is how you spend the year. So you're supposed to have New Year's Eve be all that you want of the coming year. In one of its tour announcements, the narrator's voice in my head said, "This is me, here in this dry, sunny valley, cross-country skiing on a perfect trail. I felt a bolt slip into place, a puzzle piece, a center. This wide basin, 5 hours from the city, the valley of houses miles apart in the rolling scrub, is my tap of the conductor's baton on the music stand. The smell of a new piece of paper, sound of a soda can opening, a bite of iceberg lettuce, but only if one thinks of iceberg lettuce as crisp and wet and clean. Each square foot of snow has shining facets in 7 colors, a windfall. It didn't have to be this way. Snowflakes could have been dulled, or each flake could glow like a pearl. Long white pine needles sip light from above and below. In the cabin, a Russian climber wakes us strumming classical guitar music and delivering coffee to each sleeping bag. Also here, a strong, strong woman, my friend, whose neighbor was the asshole's cat. Raised feral in Alaska, expecting her first child, naps through the banter, a tiny being nesting inside her, in deeper sleep, in a warm cabin in a freezing valley. Our hostess plays the flute. Her friend made 2 tater pies for dessert and breakfast. Oleg told us at midnight, "Как встретишь, так и проведешь." How you spend the year is how you meet the year is how you spend the year. How lucky if that means with friends, the lovely world, the narrator speaking clearly of who I am and where. Thank you.